Welcome to the Redeemed Vision podcast, where we bring sight to the blind and freedom to those enslaved by our pornified culture. Here, we dive into hard but important topics such as pornography, sexual identity, true freedom, real love, and living marriage well. Go deep with us as we uncover what redeemed vision means for each of us living in the world today. Come to know yourself, the power of redemption through Jesus Christ, the joy of laughter, and how to live in gratitude and wonder. This is Redeemed Vision.
Welcome to another edition of the Redeemed Vision podcast. I'm your host, Steve Pokorny. It's an honor to have you here. I am truly excited to have you here, and I'm excited about the guests that we're going to be discussing with tonight. Very important topic. Before we get into any of that, a little bit about our sponsors. First off is Catholic Casts. They have a collection of over 2 decades worth of material of various recordings at Catholic conferences. You can't find them anywhere else except there on that website, and you're going to be enriched. It's only $9.95 a month, and this is going to help you to grow into a deeper knowledge of yourself and to grow into how you can be a sincere gift of self. The other sponsor is Voyage Comics. A lot of Christian media today typically offers subpar products. They don't appeal to a wide variety of audiences. Well, that's not Voyage Comics. These are amazing stories. They're rooted firmly in the Catholic faith that anyone can pick up and enjoy. I want you to click on the URL below this video, wherever you're listening, or the podcast, and you can support the Voyage Comics as well as support this mission here at the Redeemed Vision podcast. And the other one is the Redeemed Vision podcast is an outreach of Freedom Coaching, freedom-coaching.net. This is where we work with both men and women, some of the most broken men and women, to help bring them to genuine freedom from the pornified culture. If you think that you are irredeemable, well, you haven't been to Freedom Coaching. So check out freedom-coaching.net and come be set free. And the last one is this podcast, along with a lot of the different entities that allows Freedom Coaching to do what it does, is made possible by the Freedom Coaching Foundation Incorporated. This is a foundation that raises funds for scholarships for clients who can't afford what we're doing in helping to set the blind free from darkness. For instance, most recently, there's a gentleman in Venezuela who literally sold his car to buy a motorcycle. And the Venezuelan economy is in very, very dire straits. But he knows that not just does man live on bread alone. He doesn't live on bread alone, but on the word of God. He knows that his attachment to pornography is killing him, and he wants freedom. And so what we are able to do because of that situation, because we have donors, we're going to be supporting him completely, 100%, to help him to go into lasting freedom. And it's a privilege to be able to do that. And we're only able to do that because of our donors, and donors also help with the production of this podcast, along with a lot of the other entities that we do, such as Redeemed Healing, which is about once a month, where we come together, no cost to anyone who attends, to do healing prayer, because there's a lot of wounds, and we have a great gift that we want to offer to the world. So if it struck your heart to support, looking for a place to tithe or a partial tithe, we are happy to receive your donations, and they will go to a very worthy cause. Well, I mentioned that I have a very special guest tonight, and get ready, because I'm looking forward to reconnecting with them. They go back, shall we say, about a decade and a half in my life, but they're near and dear to my heart. Before I introduce them, a little theme of where we're going tonight. It's once been said that beauty will save the world by Fyodor Dostoevsky, right? And it's beauty that we need more than anything. I like to say beauty is useless, but it's functionless. But without beauty, the soul shrivels up and dies. And as St. John Paul II once said in his letter to artists. He said, "This world in which we live needs beauty in order not to sink into despair. Beauty, like truth, brings joy to the human heart and is that precious fruit which resists the erosion of time, which unites generations and enables them to be one in admiration." So today, I want you to buckle your seatbelt. We're going to go on a ride into genuine beauty, into art, with not just one artist, but two. And not just two artists, but they're a married couple. It should be a fascinating discussion. And I want you to introduce you to Mark and Nicole Thomason. Dear friends of mine, they live in Denver, Colorado. They work as Catholic educators. They raise five, yes, you heard me right, five wonderful boys. God bless Nicole. And they DIY everything. They love supporting local, and they thank God for all of it. They both have bachelor's degrees. Mark has one in fine art, and Nicole in art education, as well as a master's degree in theology. And that was from Franciscan University, our alma mater. They also have been married for 17 years, I think. And their parish is in the Denver's cathedral in the heart of the city, where four of their boys, they serve mass. They're blessed to enjoy nature and urban life. They see creation and humans creating all the time. Without further ado, Mark and Nicole, welcome to the Redeemed Vision podcast. How are you all?
Great. Thanks. Hi, Steve. Thanks for having us.
Steve, 20 years, 2004.
It is. Oh my gosh, it's 20. Oh my gosh,
That's how fast it went. Yeah. Just like that.
Just like that. So and by the way, we were talking offline. You came to Texas. You went to Corpus. It wasn't exactly the beautiful Mecca that you were looking for, right? I want to let's start there, and because I know we were talking, I brought up the quote from Dostoevsky, "Beauty will save the world," and I think you have a little bit of response to that. I'm interested.
Yeah, but someone's got to make the effing beauty. like everyone loves that quote, but unfortunately, I think we've become such consumers.
Yeah.
Like consumerism isn't helping participate in beauty. Making stuff, being a part of people making stuff. It's the making of beauty. It's not a stagnant thing. I think that we've become such voyeurs and consumers. We've forgotten that beauty is an organic thing. It's not just a one-time, oh, there it is, saved it, done. Like, check, right? No, it's an ongoing process and being alive. And unfortunately, so many people don't know any artists, don't see live music. Like, we just listen to whatever the radio feeds us, pick up whatever Hobby Lobby's selling. Like, beauty means participation, or buy whatever we drive through. So real beauty means messy and life. And that's part of the quest for bringing beauty to save the world. Salvation is a process, not like a one and done thing. And it definitely isn't Pelagian, right? We didn't like buy our way in. So that's where Christians understanding beauty is even different. Like, beauty is an action.
Yes. I can piggyback off that, because there's beauty isn't a passivity. It's an intentionality, right? So if we're going to participate in beauty, that is a life intentionality, especially as Christians, and what that really looks like. I think we're told too often, like Mark said, as consumers, what to consume, as opposed to thinking about how to participate in the creation and the Lord and our lives, and what does beauty really look like for us on different levels, not just not the physical level of an aestheticism, but on a deeper level within our lives as our vocations, our primary and secondary vocations.
I also think that if again, I like beauty that fails. I like things that are not great. Like, good cooks burn a lot of things, right? And I think that we've just become so safe and so conservative. Like, well, I know this works. Yeah, but that's not fun. It's not interesting. Like, the first person that said, "Hey, I'm going to try something with again, cooking is a great analogy." The first one that tried jalapeno poppers, like, that's not going to work. And then it works, you know? So I think that that's part of the creation story that beauty is, the messy trying and failing. And I think we've become just so safe.
So. I want to jump in here as you're commenting, both of you are commenting. I think it was Jack Nicholson's Joker that most brought this out, that if you want to make an omelet, you got to crack some eggs, right? And making beauty is messy, right? So what is the Well, let's hit off that. So when you say a mess in regards to art, unveil that a little bit more. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think there's nothing demoralizing than cookie cutter. When it's like, it's banal and the same, and after a while it's all the safe sort of, like, we aren't meant to be safe or comfortable.
Yes.
I think this cookie cutter comfort that, I'll just say, a lot of conservative Christians and Catholics are going for is boring. And there's nothing worse than boring. Boring is the aesthetic equivalent of being lukewarm.
I think on a practical level, Mark and I are very conscientious consumers. And so we're very aware of where we're getting our product and how we're getting our product, whether it's the food that we eat, whether it's the interior aestheticism of our home, whether it's the clothes that we're buying. And speaking very specifically, the industrialization and corporate, I think that really loses an authentic sense of beauty for our lives. And it not only is it demoralizing, like Mark said, I think that it keeps us less human. It moves us away from our authentic humanity that Christ has really intended for us.
Yes.
And when we do the cookie cutter as the example, that lessens what God has for us to raise us towards our greater dignity.
And we're not aristocrats. We went to Whataburger. We tried it.
Are you a fan of Whataburger? Are you a fan of it?
It was not well received in my home.
Yeah, I'm not well received. I don't know why. Again, I'm in San Antonio. This is the home of Whataburger. I don't know why. I can also hit on I don't know, Five Guys. I can also hit on In-N-Out Burger. I'm sorry, cookie cutter. I would much rather make my burgers at home with the what is it? The going from the frozen patty and the just spraying all over my my stovetop, right? And then you put maybe jalapenos, maybe put the Swiss cheese on there, a little mushrooms, right?
Yeah, right.
You gotta get serious about it. Come on.
Yeah,
exactly.
So,
I think of an analogy, Steve. You said I was an art educator. I've been an art educator for 20 years. And recently, in the last 5 years, I was trained in catechesis of the Good Shepherd, which I'm so amazingly, I'm actually more proud of that than I am of my master's degree from Steubenville. And one of the things that is so important is real flowers, right? So the children will always say in catechesis, is that real? Is that real? And I had to come up with an answer. And of course the answer is yes, that those are real flowers and that is real wine that we're using, and it's real water and real candles. And because Christ is real. And if Christ is real and our faith is real, then we participate in this real living encounter. And it isn't a fake God. So if it's not a fake God, then our life can't be filled with fake.
For those of you who are hearing this again, this is Mark and Nicole Thomason of Thomason Arts. Actually, I'm going to throw I'll throw your URL up on the screen so people can go check it out. And we'll talk more about your website in a minute. I think this is so critical. And for those who aren't familiar with Catechesis of the Good Shepherd, I encourage you to go do a web search on it. Our family, Nicole, was very much a part of this. And are you... there's 3 stages for catechists? Is that correct?
3 levels. Yeah, there's 3 levels of training. I'm only level 1 trained.
Okay.
Great. So
great. It's beautiful.
A thing like CGS, people always say, like, well, does it work? I was like, yeah, it actually works. Like, because the kids have an encounter with something. If knowledge was enough, everyone would be Catholic. It's not enough. You have to encounter something.
Right.
And then eventually someone, Christ. And if you don't actually encounter something living, that it's just a dojo or a good tax break or something. It's the living encounter with things. And so if you never encounter a piece of art in real life, like, so 3 or 4 years ago now, Denver had a huge Monet show, and I like Monet, but Monet does not belong on a coffee cup or a t-shirt. Like, that's fine. It's
that's how they make their Monet. If they do, sorry.
Gross. All right.
You let right into that.
but like when you see the paintings in real life, it changes you.
Yeah.
because Christ changes you.
And that's, I think, the problem with people in the arts today. Again, if I wanted to go to a perfect mass, you can listen to a perfect mass. They've recorded them. I don't go to that. Our mass is pretty perfect. We have a great choir. We're blessed with a great choir.
Awesome.
But the off-key person and the person that doesn't step right. But the whole point is it's real. It's real.
Yes.
And if we don't have the real thing, then it becomes voyeuristic.
Well, and I think that's where the mess comes in, right? And this is the connection between the divine and the human, right? For whatever reason, could God do all of it himself? Of course, without batting an eye, right? But for whatever reason, it's like a mom who's making brownies, right? Nicole, I think you know how to make brownies after 5 boys, right? Could you make those all on your own? Yeah, but then your boy comes into the kitchen, maybe 4-year-old. He's like, "Mommy, can I help you make brownies?" You're like, "No, get out of here! You bother me, kid." No, right? Right. Yeah, they're cracking the eggs. There's flour all over the place, right? Probably things aren't measured well. It might taste like brownies. It might not. But but after that comes out of you get it into the oven and it comes out, 35 minutes later, you have something that that you created here, right? Especially if we're creating, making brownies from scratch. And that is the connection here also with Mark, what you said, just a beautiful idea, right? We want something real. We're craving for it. And I think this could take us on a whole other tangent in the work here, is the fact that a lot of the stuff in the world we have is fake food, fake arts, fake many things here. And what are we looking for, especially going back to, for instance, Catechesis of the Good Shepherd, right? Is we're dealing with real materials and this is the principle of the incarnation. Christ, God, the spiritual God, the super spiritual God coming into our physical realm, putting on a human body, engaging our physical reality, and continues to do so through a sacramental reality, right? And so what I believe, and we haven't even talked about your website. We're going to go there, right? I want to talk about the I to my detriment have never gone on your website until today, and I feel very sheepish about that for knowing you guys. So I need to spend more time in there and contemplating, because there's something about it is the physical there, but it's speaking of a transcendent reality, and I think this is what's critically important as artists themselves, to help to uplift us to a higher plane. Any thoughts you want to add on that?
Well, so there's an art, like an art gallery that I have friends that are part of, and they have a show, and they do a Star Wars show all the time, and it's fun, and it's a mashup, and it's kind of pop culture meets fine art, and I'd rather go to that and see lots of things. Some were good, some were bad, some were amazing, but I'd rather go and see that real group of people struggling to make something interesting than just be like, well, Hobby Lobby, we're just too safe. I mean, one of the things, we love Cathedral. If you've ever been to the Denver Cathedral, it's beautiful. It's French Gothic revival with huge Tiffany-sized windows, high mass choir, all the things, right? But right outside is a junkie. I mean, lots of junkies outside the door. But our kids encounter them as well, right? We don't, and like when someone's like, well, there's no parking. Really? You're going to watch the Holy Sacrifice of the Mass with Jesus Christ, you're worried about parking? Like, I'm willing to die for Christ, but walk a block?
Yeah. And on that level, Nicole, please.
No, it's okay. I derailed. Go ahead.
No, well, within that whole thing, I mean, we're at a Melkite parish here in San Antonio, and yes, I've made that switch over to the east, and it's a beautiful thing. But I always say to people who come to our parish, don't judge us by our bathrooms, right? They're not the most exciting thing in our parking lot. We're right next to Catholic. We share a parking lot with Catholic Charities. We have a plethora of homeless people, right? And they're not the problem, right? We are, right? In the sense, if we miss the beauty of who these people are. And one quick story of using the physical evangelization, the Saturday before Holy Week is known as Lazarus Saturday. And one of the things in the East, what they do, Nicole, you may want to look this up if you're a baker, we create Lazarus cookies. And so we had created a batch the day beforehand, and I was getting something out of my car, and somebody comes up and looking for help and a handout. And we usually keep homeless packs in the back of our vehicle. And I also had Lazarus cookies. So for the first time ever, and I haven't been invited to do it yet, was I evangelized with a cookie and said, this is going to be delicious, man. I promise you. But what's inside that building is going to taste way better. because it's God incarnate for you, right? So the physical to bring in that whole nature there. So God bless you that you're in an inner city parish. It is so needed, and our job is to take the beauty that we receive in those churches within liturgy and to bring that out to those who are in desperate need of it, right? So
you mentioned the messiness, right? And the messiness is on every level. The messiness of actually physically making a piece of artwork, the messiness of bringing life into the world, the messiness of the participation of the incarnate word taking on our flesh, the messiness of brownies. And this is all beautiful. And we could speak for probably forever about the hierarchy of beauty and where that plays within our lives, right? I'm working through a book right now called The Handmade Life, and the importance and value of things that are handmade, and what that looks like for Mark and I, just allowing the messiness of life. Like Mark said, we're not elite, but we're aware that it is messy and that is good and beautiful, and of course true, because that's what we want to be leading ourselves to, leading our children to, our education through our educational vocation as well.
I think it's interesting. So like, not out of any piety, I started receiving the Eucharist on the tongue because my hands were always messy from art. So right, so it's not piety. It's like
it's with practicality.
I got paint on my hands.
You ate enough paint chips as a child. We understand.
Exactly. So, but there's just a good analogy in that. And again, I don't care, hands, tongue. It's not a liturgy war question. But for me, it's a question of like, wait, if your hands are never dirty, what are you doing? Like, your hands are never dirty? Ever? This is a crazy life to say that. There's nothing worse. Like, so it's an anecdote, again, a priest friend of ours, and he told it, and I'm not going to say names, but this little girl went up and her dad's like, go ahead and shake Father's hand, brand new to the parish. And this is in a rural part of the country. And she shook his hand. She goes, Dad, his hands are so soft. I never shook hands with a man's hands that were that soft. And then he was instantly shamed. It's like, I'm going to start building stuff. Like, he was just like, because he's like, my hand shouldn't be that soft because I haven't done manual labor forever. He grew up in rural America. He grew up doing manual labor and realized he was missing something.
Speaking to the importance of the making and the creating, I want to encourage people that it doesn't matter what it is you're making and creating, just make and create, because by doing that, you're feeding your own soul because you're co-creating with the great creator, right? So we're all participating in this great creation. And by doing that, and we have a lot of that in our home because we are artists and our children join us in that. We encourage that. There's art supplies and junk all over my house, everywhere, all the time. I'll never forget the first time Mark got oil paint when we were first married on our brand new sheets.
Tell the story.
On our sheets, it was on our brand new sheets, and oil paint it's not coming. It's not coming out. It's over. Yeah. And he was like, all he did was like horrified and just stood there. And I was like, this is the life we chose. I am okay with oil paint on my sheets because this is joy. This brings joy. Now, I was irritated, but it's okay. I moved on past the materialism.
Well, did you take the sheet off the bed and put it on the wall, and then we can sell it for $5,000? It's ours.
Maybe. No, I think it's also interesting because I think people are so worried about being judged, which is sad, right? So that I want to go to someone's house and get the pre-approved art that my guests will like as well, right? So I want to make sure that, there's a standard. If you go to someone's house and they have weird stuff, you're going to say, oh, that person's, but see, that's for me. I like the weird stuff. I like the fact that people are trying to find things they like. And I think it's better with music, but still everyone wants something safe, right? We want the safe or the approved by our sort of clique of people around us. And I think that's what's hard for people. Plus the money thing is hard for people. When someone, I have a painting, it's worth $10,000. It was, whoa, why? I said, well, it took me 6 months to paint. So I'll just take 6 months of your salary instead of that.
Yep.
And so their brain can't imagine something being that expensive. And that's, again, someone recently I was having a conversation like, well, I really love Caravaggio. I was like, well, everyone loves Caravaggio. He was a terrible person, did terrible things, but his art is beautiful. I said, but his painting of St. Thomas or St. Matthew is two famous paintings. He took him years to paint. So you want a Caravaggio? I'll take a 5-year salary up front and you'll get it later. Like that's what the arts take. The other part that we're working on a lot is the time it takes. It's really hard for people to understand, like, well, how long did that painting take? I was like, well, I walked around, I thought about it, I stared at it for 2 days. Like, you can't really quantify staring at your own art. But the time part of creativity, I think, is a very good analogy to the time part of the spiritual life. There's nothing better than silence. Like, that is the actual best school. And there's no like, well, how, like, I'm praying my rosary, I'm going to mass. Yeah, great. All great. Not saying it's not great. But just sit and be quiet for 10 minutes a day. See what Jesus does to you then. And I think that's the part of the creation story that we as Catholics need to get back to as creative people, is that sitting there and being quiet and listening is kind of the beginning of the story of creation.
This is huge. And I want to highlight some themes you just brought out, Mark and Nicole. One, the word strikes me as sterilized. And I think we can go here with fertility being sterilized, which the issue of being a married couple and raising children, a decision to how is God calling us to bring children into the world and to raise those children, and we want it all neat. We want a cookie cutter, or we want our food prepackaged that we don't have to garden for it, we don't have to take care of it. Somebody else provides for it, or and again, there's lots of different examples of that. And I think especially along those lines is maybe perhaps because we're so a mess in here, we don't want to put a mess out there. But I think that whole notion along that, Mark, where you're hitting on, of the necessity for silence, the necessity perhaps to touch into our messiness, the messiness going on in our lives, into our hearts, into our souls. What's the ache that we have going on here, right? And I think that notion of some of the greats, right? Van Gogh and Rembrandt, right? They were tortured souls. They were able to communicate their pain. And if we can do that, right? If we can tap into our own pain, allowing Christ to redeem that, should we say, right? It's not simply throwing just ugliness in the world, but allowing that ugliness, perhaps we find here, allowing that to be redeemed and then to share that with the world. I think that's where we're going to be able to connect with people. And I think this is why the work you do as artists is critically important, because it's tapping people into something much more than the sterilized economy that we oftentimes find ourselves in.
Mm-hmm. Steve, I want to just say a very important pivotal moment in my life as an artist was when I was a priest friend of ours suggested reading and doing The Artist's Way. And anyone out there who might be having any inclination to the arts, whether it's the language arts, the visual arts, the music, and when you're stuck and you're in that place, like you said, and you have to do some soul searching and some digging, it's 12 weeks of working through as an artist what that means to clean up in here so that you can be a better artist and well as establish a relationship with God. And it's just a plug I'm going to put in for people who might need, as an artist, a little bit of.
We're not endorsed by The Artist's Way, but
we are not.
It's a great book.
It's phenomenal. It's a deep dive. It's a deep dive, and it gets messy because you have to ask the tough questions and look at the real parts of yourself. Vulnerably before God.
Sorry. The other thing I think is really becoming a challenge more and more to me is American Catholics specifically's obsession with Europe. I understand Rome, it's beautiful, I've been there, all that. But like when I ask people, like, name one American artist, just one. Like, Monet. I was like, okay, nope, he's French. Great. I still like him too. No problem. So name
one, gives it away.
Yeah, and so contemporary arts are hard. Most people know contemporary music or contemporary but contemporary arts, it's a whole subcategory you really got to get into. It's fine. But the fact that most Americans don't know any American art is a real poverty that we need to address. Being in the West, it's easy for us, like Russell and Remington and Homer and even like Norman Rockwell. There's amazing American artists that every American should know. It's like again, you don't have to like jazz, but not knowing jazz is not knowing who you are. Jazz is American. Like, it's infuriating to me that we just don't know any, like, we have very few things we've given to the world. The things we have given are amazing. Jazz, amazing Western art. There's some beautiful parts of our culture, and there's kind of becoming a backlash and an obsession with classics and the old stuff and learn all the old stuff. Again, pro old stuff. But I live here. I live here in the American West right now. And we have got to know our own heritage. Most people, again, you have an icon in the background there, but you're in San Antonio. You should also have a Santos, right? You should have a nice little Santos of St. Anthony. The Santos arts are beautiful. And that's like such an American expression of that, of these first people bringing the faith. It's one thing Pope Francis said, which I couldn't agree with more. He goes, the American Catholic history is not east to west. So we learn history from the East Coast to the West Coast, right? With the founding and the 13 colonies. The American Catholic history is south to north, with the Franciscans coming in and the missions. And we should know more about Junipero than we do about George Washington.
I think you're right. And this also gives another reason, another plug to come back to San Antonio, Mark and Nicole, because we have the missions and we are very familiar with them here. And the work that first exposure of bringing the faith here through beauty, and again we see especially the Indian culture, Indian art, the mezcla of those coming in here. I'll agree, and I want to change tactic just for a moment, because I think we talk around it, and we can do an entire seminar on what I'm about to ask you. So I'm looking for a succinct answer as much as you can, okay? Which may be an impossible thing. We talk about beauty, we talk about art. As good philosophers, how do you define those terms?
Oh, that's easy.
Well, please tell me.
Now listen, this could be forever. This could be forever.
Well, so
but we can do this pretty quickly.
I'll do art and she'll do beauty.
Beautiful.
So art there's three categories of art. This is real easy. There's decorative arts, right? This is on our website.
Art for art's sake.
So art for art's sake.
We'll interject. We'll
right. So like a giant paperclip. It's fun. Paperclips are small. It's a giant paperclip. That's fine.
Yes.
Art for art's sake. Or like a buffalo, right?
Or a hand-thrown beautiful ceramic mug that's ready to go for you to drink your coffee out of.
So you got your art, right? And then there's religious art, which is art that points to the transcendental, which is more towards the big three, right? Beauty, truth, and goodness.
The subject matter is religious.
It doesn't have to be overtly religious. So again, to go with the mug, maybe the crystal that you have for your wedding, that's a religious symbol for you and your wife. You don't just have the kids drink Pepsi out of it. There's two crystal glasses you save for your wedding that you guys toasted. And then there's sacred art, which is art that's actually used for worship. So the chalice at Mass is sacred art. The crystal is religious art. The mug you bought at the Ren Fest you drink beer out of, that's art for art's sake. And we need all three of those.
To which all of humanity participates in making and creating. It's mark making, right? So it's an expression of the knowledge and the self of the artist coming out in that particular piece. And
so when we start, that's where the handmade life thing comes in, right? Taking the time to buy something that is made purposefully reminds us, again, foam coffee is disgusting. Paper coffee is okay. Coffee out of a real mug it just tastes better. Champagne should be served out of crystal. I'll drink it out of a tumbler. I'll drink it out of the bottle if I have to. But like in other words, there are proper things. And so if we don't have those different elements of art for art's sake, religious art, and sacred art, and unfortunately, too many Catholics think everything has to be sacred. Like, oh, you're a sacred artist. I'm like, no, I'm an artist who once in a while does a sacred piece. So one of my pieces is in a chapel, in a private chapel, that's above the altar. So that's clearly being used for worship. One of my pieces is just like a buffalo at someone's house, right? That's just art for art's sake. But we just think, well, I can't have, like, no, that's the whole point. You have all the different kinds. You have to have all of it. He said, come on. All right, now beauty. Come on. What is beauty? So
bring it.
So this is going to be like,
that was good art.
This is not a masterful articulation, because when you deep dive on the philosophy of beauty, I can't really start with Plato and Aristotle for you, right? But there are so many philosophers and theologians who've spoken about beauty throughout all of antiquity and history. So we know beauty is a transcendental, right? Beauty is deeply connected and rooted to truth and goodness. All right. To whom beauty then ultimately defined is he is the beauty to which you are so attracted. Christ, right? John Paul said that. So when you want to break down understanding what beauty is, you can, most contemporarily, vocabulary and understanding is using the elements and principles of art, which are really only a modern articulation of the theological and philosophical understanding of beauty throughout history. So we can start talking about the beautiful and defining beauty through words like proportion and harmony and integrity and balance and unity, variety. And those are all principles of understanding a thing in which it is beautiful, or a experience in which it is beautiful. It also lifts the soul, right, to which we are attracted, Thomas says, St. Thomas. And then you have the elements that have informed those definitions. So you have line, shape, value, color, form, and texture. Those are the informing pieces that go with and essentially the ingredients to the recipe. And the recipe is the understanding of the principles of art. Then you can deep dive philosophically and further on into that. But
this is also,
we could be here forever.
This is
yes, we could.
These are also all the arts, right?
Beautiful.
We know harmonies and melodies and syncopation and music.
But
we also know dissonance, right. Like the off note is
rhythm.
What makes it interesting, right?
Rhythm as a necessity.
Our kid just did a fifth grader did a thing on jazz, and they did Take Five, which is an amazing piece of music because it's 5/4 time.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And so but the teacher goes to an awesome school, taught the kids that this off music is what makes it genius, that you can make something backwards and then they made it beautiful. And these little kids are trying to do it's like one of the hardest things to drum in the world. You got fifth graders trying to so
there goes the camera.
There goes the camera. But
I'm okay with that. Making a mess.
I think that's the thing that we all, so to quote Thomas correctly, beauty is not in the eye of the beholder. If it's beautiful, the eye will behold it.
Ah, that is beautifully said. Literally.
That's the actual translation.
So that's a simple version, but basically we recognize beauty because of our nature as creatures.
So then we can talk about the objective nature of beauty and the subjective nature of beauty, right? So there's the objective reality to which we can philosophically and theologically talk about it. But then you have a subjective reality of that objective beauty because I had an experience of it. So I had a sunset experience where I can talk about how it was objectively beautiful. Nobody's going to argue that a sunset isn't beautiful or you have health issues, right? But my subjective experience, I'm going to speak about it possibly differently. And I'm going to put a little plug in here. We've actually had a lot of plugs throughout this thing, but I'm going to plug probably one of the best contemporaries who speak on beauty in a practical way that is tangible for people is Bishop Barron. He does a wonderful job. He did a conference on beauty in I think it was LA in California. And I probably listened to him talk on that specific talk repeatedly like 8 times because so much of that language is helpful. He's more of an expert in music and baseball. So, it just, he really, if people want to deep dive and jump off of this podcast for something to more edifying to keep going, that's a suggestion there.
Just one thing, if you can get me the URL for the Barron talk, I will happily.
If it's still up, yeah.
It's on the internet, Steve.
No, it's hard to find. It's actually, anyways.
But the other thing about beauty is a lot of times we think about things like beautiful and ugly, and I'm going to say, no, it's really good, better, best. Or it's bad.
Because what is actually ugly is
ugly
sin and not God.
So ugly is sin. So again, if it's poisonous, you can't eat it. That's actually harmful to you. But then there's good food, there's better food, and there's best food.
Yes.
So a lot of people say, I don't like it, it's ugly. It's like, well, maybe it's not ugly. So pornography is ugly. some things just aren't aesthetically as good, better, or best.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we use ugly cheaply as consumers and viewers.
Yes.
Like,
Steve, I
ugly.
really want to also encourage people not to be intimidated by this. We participated consciously and subconsciously all the time because we make a decision every day. We go to the grocery store and we pick out which apple is technically more beautiful, right?
Aesthetically pleasing to us.
Yeah, which one has the crunch, which one is not squishy and smushy. Okay, so my point is don't be intimidated. Start beginning to, if you haven't already, I encourage people to like start working on your learned perceptivity. What makes good, better, and best hamburgers, right? Like you explain that amazing hamburger that you make versus McDonald's. What makes it that thing? So then you're going to also get that learned perceptivity with art. But the only way you can do that is to expose yourself. You've got to be out there and expose yourself, expose your kids to beautiful things. Go to the art museums, go to the galleries, support artists, learn about what they're doing. And let your kids get messy. Do you know how many times, Steve, in art, I'll have a kid say, I'm not allowed to use that art material at home. And I'm like, ugh.
Yeah. The other thing is like, again, go see live music.
That's another,
which is ironic to say seeing live music, but seeing live music sounds
being
different.
There. It's being there, feeling.
It's a participation.
Right. And the one thing I will say about like the Manal, if your only reference points for hamburgers is McDonald's, it just will eventually poison you.
Quite literally. That's like, literally, right?
Like,
yes.
But it's the same thing that numbs us, right? When we get numb, we're not human anymore. So all these people are doing cold plunges and doing all these things to try and like stretch themselves. Yeah, go to a show that you maybe aren't going to like the thing, right? Maybe you're going to say, okay, I'm not a big fan of jazz. There's a live jazz place. I'm going to take a date. We're going to leave early. Like, you got to try things that aren't in your wheelhouse because you're never going to grow as a lover
human
of
being.
beauty. Yeah. I mean, I'm not a huge country fan, but I found some of it is not terrible.
Palatable. It's palatable for you. Yeah, I know. I used to, truth be told, I used to hate country because it was the twang. And being in Texas, and maybe it's being married for this long, it's come here. And now my 13-year-old daughter, it might have something to do with boys, has gotten turned on to country music. So never in my wildest fantasy as a single man would that have come, which is the same. Like, again, we can argue all day long the merits of country music. We're not going to go there in this podcast. But the notion of, right, this is a call to get dangerous. This is a call to get uncomfortable. There's a call to, again, some of the mess there. And especially, and I think one of the things we say, if we don't have moorings and I think this is why goodness, truth, beauty, and unity, the four transcendentals are so important, why morality is important here, right? But within this notion, there's a lot of leeway here, and especially if we've been, again, I want to be careful about this. This isn't about breaking eternal rules. This isn't about breaking the 10 Commandments. But we are talking about, like, the life was never meant to be lived merely in our house. We're meant to go out to experience life, right? And I think that's what you and Mark Nicole are trying to communicate here, right? If we find ourselves, to go back to that word of sterilized, if we find ourselves in a sterilized situation, are we really living, or are we just existing, right? We're meant to enter into something where we're in a discomfort, and that's where growth comes in here, right? I think that's critically important. And I want to pivot our conversation here with the remaining time, and I think we're gonna have to do this again because there were a list for all those who are watching this. There was a list of questions. I'm getting like none of them, except I think one of them. Okay, but I do want to get to this one. I want you to think back. I know it's hard for y'all before you were married, right?
Oh, I can.
Y'all,
very easily.
You're so bad.
Wait, what'd you say?
I said I can imagine it very easily. No, I'm just kidding.
Dangerous. There will be pain after this. But how would you say your art was? Because I assume, because both of you, just the way in which this conversation is bleeding out of you tonight, right? Art has been in your soul, in your bloodstream, probably from the time you started walking or before that, right? How would you say individually and then collectively has your art developed? Your arts, maybe it's skills or whatever. How would you say your I'm grasping with the words here, but your experience of art and how you've approached the creation of art individually and collectively as a couple. How would you describe that process for you?
Oh, I've just become more patient with it, which is harder to think about because I have less time. But I'm not nearly as, like, I still paint in some of the same styles. I'm a very expressive painter. I love the brush stroke and all that stuff. But I've just become more patient with the work. And I've also become more patient with the failure of it. A friend who's an artist said, he goes, every piece should be a throwaway sketch and a Michelangelo. So as worthless as possible and as the most important as possible. So you kind of take that approach to each piece. It helps you kind of keep that balance. Like this, it could be the best thing I ever do, or it could just be something that's just a sketch. So I've become more patient since then. And I think I've also truly, I rejected a lot of Western motifs as a young man because I'm from here. And then I realized I like buffalo. I'm gonna start painting them. What do I care? Because it can become very trite and you can kind of feel like you're kind of being cliche when you start painting things that are around you. Like, but I thought, I am in the West. I like the Western motifs. I'm going to paint those subjects because I like them for my own sake. And that was a big difference. Kind of the stability of married life reminded me that it's okay to do the things that are, like if we were in Maine, I'd probably paint lighthouses. We're not. We're out in the West.
So I would say personally for me, my artwork has evolved as I have as a person. So, and I've learned more about myself. I was mostly a ceramicist and then I drew a lot. And then as I researched and grew as a person, I was like, I really love folk art. And I've gone further into taking, themes of our faith and putting that into folk art style. In my Scandinavian heritage informs that style. I also like the mess of life. So I work in charcoal. And because it's so messy, it's so free, it's so tactile. And I have grown in those couple mediums and I'm feeling really pushed again to go back to doing a body of ceramic work. So my journey as a personal artist has come along as I personally have interiorly as well as academically.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So how would you say because one of the themes that we're coming across here as in this podcast is as a married couple, how has that united? How has that jived? How has there been conflict? How would you describe is it merely a male female thing? How would you describe that in building the art of your marriage?
So
that's a big question, Steve.
It is a big question. We dropped the big questions here. You're welcome.
I think an analogy of this is I'll have Nicole come to the studio and look at the work. And if she's not interested, it's terrible. Or she's something like, oh, that's nice. It's like, okay.
I don't say that word.
Burn it.
That is
burn
never,
it, right?
Yeah.
She'll say it's not done yet, right?
Yeah.
Or like she'll never give like a direct, like, the blue's not blue enough or paint like, but she'll just make the comment about like working more and working harder at it. Or sometimes she'll say like work on the highlights or the lowlights, but it won't be like very pointed until I say, all right, I actually want you to critique it now. So I invite her into that critique moment. But this is what marriage is. Sometimes you observe, sometimes you offer, most times you keep your mouth shut. When you're asked, you try and give feedback that will help them become a better person. Because I know she wants my paintings to be as beautiful as I do. We're not in competition. I think too many married couples are in competition.
Yeah.
And when you realize, I want her to make beautiful art. And that's part of what we're doing. We're making, like, we have these beautiful children. We have this beautiful life. On a practical level, we have a small home, which I honestly think is the best thing you can do. You run into each other then. You run into each other, and that's what makes you holy. I think too many people hide from themselves. And so living with another artist, I can go to critique, I can go see other people, I can have other artists that are critiquing. But I have a live-in person that I know wants the best for me. So that's what I think.
I have so many comments. I want to hear Nicole. Go.
Well, what's really interesting is this.
Beautiful.
This is about communication, right? You're talking about two eccentric, very intense people who are artists, who married each other, who live together, and who actually are professional artists. So there is a lot of conflict, and we do butt heads. So what we've learned through our marriage is that when we go to communicate in this way, we say, how are we communicating? Are we communicating as lovers and partners right now, married couple? Are we going to communicate about this particular artwork as fellow artists and critique? Because you're going to say it differently and you're going to receive it differently.
Do you need to add a boy, or do you want me to tell you?
Or do you want me to just listen and affirm you? So, so depending on where we're at to be able to receive that communication, but we do invite each other into that. But that's a lot of intimacy between two people all the time.
Oh yeah.
Also, I will say Mark took a year sabbatical this last year to just work as an artist. And as any missionary, anyone who works and serves for the Lord, it's a huge sacrifice. So for us to choose the vocation as artists, as Catholics, and have a family, it's a massive sacrifice, and one that is so worth it because the mess is beautiful. And I wouldn't ever, I mean, Mark's work that I have seen him now that he's been 100% dedicated to painting right now has leaps and bounds of growth. And I'm so proud of the work that he has accomplished.
But we're broke. We're out of money. So I'm going to be honest. I cashed in my retirement for this, to try this. And the other side of it that's really hard, because like we could move to rural America, but we need to be in the arts as well. Like it's very difficult to say I'm going to step away and be this, like you just can't be inspired in a nothing. Like you have to go and be a part of a real zeitgeist.
I would say a really easy, simple analogy is, as a Christian, in order to be that, you have to live in community, you have to live in the sacraments, you have to go to church. As an artist, you have to do that same sacramental thinking. You have to be around the world and beauty of the life that is the arts.
And there's a lot of gross stuff in galleries.
Well, we just avoid that.
But you have to. But you go into but you go see it, and it's cliche, and you leave.
Well, there's a lot of bad art out there,
right? But
everyone's.
But you
give it a try.
You got to be a part of a thing, and retreating is not an option, especially for an artist. So you can imagine the best musician. They have to go gig. They have to be in bars. They have to play. They have to be around other musicians. You know, chefs have to be around other cuisines to taste and touch and feel like. So, like, I don't know how to be an artist out of a city. Maybe they can do it. Maybe it exists, but you have to be in a culture. So a comedian said, "You can't tell jokes about life if you don't have a life," which I love that, right? So if you don't have a life, so she goes, "I take off a month to go just live, but I have jokes to write about living." And I think that's the challenge. Like, it would be romantic to be this hermit priest who paints, or like a hermit sister who does charcoals, but that's not going to push us.
And they're out there, and they have that's their purpose, right?
Yeah, it's fine. They write icons for the Malachites.
But
perhaps they do. Thank you. I think it's a call to get out there. Right? It's a call to be. It's as we like to say, be in the world but not of it. Right? As Catholics, as Christians, we need to enter into it. And I think this is the world. The reason why the Western world and maybe all the world seems to be dying right now is because we as Catholics have given up the call to create beauty, starting with ourselves in the proper understanding of that, allowing grace to elevate our nature, to get into the hard work of growing in virtue, and then in whatever ways in which we have talent, especially if we're in music or literature or art or visual arts, to bring that in there. crazy important. So what you're doing, everyone, I'm going to ask specifically about the website in a second, but I want all of you who are watching this, all of you who are hearing this, please visit Thomason Arts. If you have a bone in your body of any desire for beauty, patronize the work they're doing. If you want to support the work they're doing, give them money. Okay. And this is from a poor begging ministry, because the work they're doing is, and I stand by that notion, right? We may not physically die with not having beauty, but your soul will. And if you are not, if you're a body without a soul, then you're a zombie. And we have way too many zombies, and we need people to come fully alive. So thank God for what you're doing on this. So to close up our time here, we're gonna have to do this again because we're just out of time, and we're still gonna do something fun here because you're a first time guest on the Redeemed Vision podcast, Mark and Nicole. Talk about your way. And $1 million idea. Mark gave me $1 million idea before we came on. So here's $1 million idea. And if you already are doing it, then we're going to promote the heck out of this. And if you're not, then I want you to strongly consider this. Everything you're saying, Mark, speaks to me deeply and painfully as a married man who does not have it all together. I'm a mess in my marriage. I'm in a lot of areas. I do a lot of things well. There's a lot of things I could do better. And it's that art of communication, Nicole, as you said, right, in big ways. Are you guys putting together a marriage retreat art-wise for married couples?
Not yet, apparently.
Okay, so I again, take this to the Lord. If he says yes, do whatever Jesus tells you to do. But I think there's something here of helping married couples. You know, we talk about getting into the mess, and I think a lot of married couples, why we're dying, why we're struggling in our marriages, is we're afraid to get naked with each other, not merely physically, but a matter of to bear that space, that vulnerability, because, like you said it very well, we're on this journey. We're on this journey of creating here, and what the mistake I think a lot of married couples do, they get into. Say, for instance, Nicole, you walk in on a Mark of he's working on something in his life, shall we say, to keep the metaphor going here, right? Some spouses will hammer them because it's not done yet, and it's not done the way they think it should be. Instead of, okay, what kind of conversation is this? Is this a listening conversation? Is it a step back? Is it, can I offer a suggestion here? Maybe you should put the hammer down and stop wailing on yourself. Or okay, I'm going to stand back. I'm going to sit here. Go ahead and full on critique me, right? That kind of analogy, I think, is critical information for just married couples, regardless of what state they are in their marriage, troubled we're doing all right and we want to get better at this thing, to be able to figure this out. And so using art as that metaphor to drive them into the different aspects of marriage, I want to go on that retreat. So no offense, I'm going to humbly charge this, but if it's not of Jesus, ignore me, but maybe it's not. We'll leave it there. Okay.
Right. Thank you. We'll definitely consider and pray. It's there. We've had many discussions about this kind of.
You're welcome, and you're and whatever good's there. If there's any good, give it to Jesus. If it's bad, just blame me. I'll take it. But
we have for 20 years, Steve.
Thank God nothing's changed. Nothing's changed, Mark. I got to get together and give a big burly man hug. It's coming. All right. So with that's art right there. So with this here, I want you to talk about it to close our time. Please talk about your website, because you have some, again, I feel really sheepish, and I got vulnerable, and I had not walked through, scanned through the work there, and I need to go back and sit with some of the pieces there, and I probably do need to go patronize the work there, because there's something good there. Talk about the website. Talk about the things that you have to offer there, because they're really important.
Well, I'm gonna be transparent and vulnerable. We built our own website, and that's a ton of work, and as all of you know who are out there in the missionary world and entrepreneurship with your own businesses. So it's gone through a lot of overhauls, and we have worked really hard to try to get it to a place that is hopefully aesthetic, consumer available, but also speaks to the heart of what we're doing. And that is art and beauty for a renewal of culture. And so we're trying to do both of those things there and share a bit about our life. so you can shop on it, right? And then there's also places within the website, I think it's pretty navigatable to find, if that's a word.
It is.
The other,
you're an artist. Make a new word.
The other places in there where you can get a part of the mission that we're trying to do, and be involved. Learn about us, shop with our artwork. You can get, there's original artwork, there's prints, and again, being involved with the mission of renewing culture.
One thing that's very important for me and the art world is we do have a limited number of things because we don't want to become mass consumers. So it's original and limited edition prints.
Lovely.
Because we want there to be a sense that this is, because we can always make more art, but we just don't want 10,000 prints, even though that would be easier. We try and do high quality stuff. We're trying to have that reflected. We're trying to actually, so our prints are actually made here in Colorado. So those sort of subsidiarity things, we're trying to actually live, and it's exhausting. But but on top of it, I mean, we also are very open to collaborations. We love working with other people. We know that this is our field. We know there's things we don't know. And I think that's part of the other problem is that synergy. I think too many people are siloed and worried about their slice of the pie. We just want enough slice to pay our bills, right? We don't need to become the giant Catholic artists. That'd be great too. We just want to help everyone understand that this is a part of who we are as a culture. And you're right, Western civilization is dying because we're not making it. I think the best thing that happened to the French people was Notre Dame burning. Because they realized,
that's controversial. Bring it on.
We could lose this. This could go away. And an avowed atheist French billionaire said, I'll give the first billion to make this come back.
Wow.
Because we're basically the Paris Hilton of Western civilization. We inherited something and we're squandering it.
Yes.
And if we're not building this and collaborating and knowing each other and being on podcasts from friends we haven't talked to, like this is how we save civilization. Not through politics, not through elections, through grassroots and making culture. Beauty will save the world, but someone has to effing make the beauty.
Yes. Yes. Well, we came full circle. And last word on this section, Miss Nicole.
Gracious. I am honestly just very thankful that you took the time, and I'm so glad that you did this with us. It's just so blessed, and the Lord is so good, and he is just working for all of us in a way. And I just want to just say again, reach out if people want to. We're very easily to get in contact with, and we're willing to share and keep this idea of renewing culture for the kingdom of God.
Praise God. Praise God. And again, Mark and Nicole Thomason at thomasonarts.com. For all those who are listening, you can't see the screen. For anyone who's watching or listening to this, please check out their website. Please patronize their work. This is how we as the Catholic culture, and I think this is exactly what the internet is supposed to do, right? If done well, to bring us together. And is that not what true art is supposed to do, and to bring us into union with beauty himself, right? So thank you for being here. And now we're going to do something completely different. So clear your heads. And Mark, no pressure there. And from here, we're gonna introduce you to what is called the 12, and we're gonna do the married version on this. So these are 12 questions, has nothing pretty much to do and everything to do with what we just talked about. So we're gonna ask you. Here you go. All right, number one. What was your first dance song title at your reception?
Something.
I don't know if we did a first dance because we didn't have a band. We just played Italian music over the restaurant and opened up the dance floor. And I think we just danced. I don't think we did.
So, well, we got married on New Year's Eve as well. So
there you go.
Super late.
So we didn't. I don't think we had a first dance.
Let's say Sinatra.
Sinatra. There it is.
Sinatra. Great. But given the fact that y'all are artists, this makes complete sense that would be your answer for the first dance. All right, I'll go with it. All right. Number two, who's most likely to do the dishes? There you go.
Mark doesn't do them right.
He likes doing them.
That's good that nobody's talking. Maybe that's what it is.
No, she doesn't do them right. I just always do them because I want to be cleaned.
The creation of beauty. Number 3, who snores the loudest? There you go. Number 4, who's a better singer?
I think you are.
Yeah, if I can find the note, I'm better.
Okay.
I just sing to annoy Jesus and remind me he didn't give me a good voice.
Yeah, exactly. That's how Jesus, you gave me this voice. I'm going to give it right back to you.
That's what I do.
There you go.
Bring
right
it on.
there. Number 5, who's the optimist in the relationship?
Me.
I am not an optimist or a pessimist. I am a person of hope.
And very quotable at that. Number 6, who's the better kisser?
I am.
Yeah.
I would say I am too.
Okay, very good. Try Listerine, Mark. It might help. All right, number 7. Who's a night owl?
Mark.
Yeah, that's a big give when you're married. You got to figure out your spouse's
Sleep schedule.
And I've become a morning person because of marriage.
Got it. Adjusted. Number 8, who's the better cook?
Me.
Okay.
Yes, because you bring your art skills into the kitchen and you don't follow a recipe, and he tries things, and then I was like, what were you thinking? I'm the better cook.
So there's a cook, there's a cook, there's a chef, and then there's like the experimentation. Your basic cooking skills is me. The chef is Nicole.
Okay.
He takes your basic thing and makes it better. But then I go the next layer up, as always. I take it to the next level. But your basic cooking is me, like eggs and nothing like the low level.
Nobody's going to die when Mark is around because there will be food, but Nicole gives the presentation and makes it absolutely beautiful. Would that be a fair assumption?
She's the better chef for sure.
Okay.
And she's a really good cook though, too. Just your basic cooking stuff. The question is always how you make eggs.
That is true.
If you really want to test people's skills, scrambled eggs.
So scrambled eggs?
That's it.
There's
Got it. Wait, so
right way to do it.
So Nicole, I'm coming for dinner. What are you making?
What am I making you?
Yeah, we're gonna lay it. If you had a guest,
well, the first thing I would ask is, what are you allergic to? Because usually everybody.
I'm not allergic. You get to make a fantastic feast. A guest is coming in. What's your? This is a follow-up question.
I know this. I would probably do something from our heritage, probably spetzel and Swedish meatballs. I might do lamb. I might do a lamb roast. And we love grilling and smoking. So
awesome. As I know this is boxy, but the IKEA Swedish meatballs, they're not half bad.
Okay.
They're not half bad.
They're just full of chemicals.
True.
Mine are amazing.
I we gotta bring the family. Let's do this. We gotta do this. And then also you mentioned about lamb for Easter Sunday. So we do at the Melkite parish. We're at 3 hierarchs in San Antonio. Anybody who's around, come on down. So we'll do an Easter, the Paschal vigil, and then 12 hours later we come back to the parish. We do this short 30-minute liturgy that as many languages as possible to proclaim the gospel. And then our pastor breaks out a 40-pound lamb roast that he's been on a rotisserie since like 10 a.m. that morning.
So good. So good.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Okay. That was a follow-up. You had A and B on 8. All right, 9. This is important for marriage. Who's more likely to apologize first? Okay.
Probably Mark.
Probably. All right.
Yeah.
Number 10. Which actors do you think you as a couple would star in as a movie about your life?
I don't understand the question.
You're going to cast the actor that plays you.
Cast the actor who would play you in a movie?
He's going to have to pick both because I don't.
You don't watch movies?
I don't.
That's fine.
I'm
that's
terrible.
Not a problem.
He thinks I'm like culturally deprived.
Who do you want? Like, just name an actress you like that you remember. That alone should say something.
Julia Roberts. Now that's how old I am.
There you go. We'll go Julia. She's still around somewhere. She's kicking somewhere. And Mark?
Yes, she's
Will
cute.
Ferrell.
Yes, I'm in. I want to watch this film. I'm in. As artists, that actually could be a real film. I'm in on that. Cool. Number 11, as a couple, what is your bucket list country or city?
There's a lot.
Country?
Country or city? Pick one. What would it be?
Paris.
Bucket list.
What do you mean?
The thing you want to do.
Oh, I want to do? Oh, the Holy Lands.
Okay.
Let's go.
Let's go to the Holy Land.
Holy Land.
Okay.
I would love to take my kids to the Scandinavian countries because our heritage is Scandinavian, and I was blessed to go there, and I felt at home.
I love it. And how's your Icelandic language going?
Awesome.
Awesome. And then number 12, why get married in the Catholic Church?
There's only one way to do it. Everything else is, I know it's real marriage. I understand that. I acknowledge that. But if you really want to be happy, do it the best. Do it the best way. The grace is necessary. The life is beautiful. It's happier. And it's more fun.
I guess my bridegroom and my bride, where else would I want to be participating with my groom here?
Yeah, it's the one analogy he gives us, right? I'm the bridegroom, you're the bride. So he didn't say I'm the corporate CEO or the tax break, even though we got married the last day, got tax breaks, all those things.
It doesn't mean it isn't hard. It's hard, right, Steve? This is, we didn't, but Jesus didn't say it was going to be easy.
Said he'd be with us.
Right? He'd be with us until the end of the age. And his grace is enough.
I can't imagine not being married in the Catholic Church. I mean, that's like,
how much harder would that be?
I'm not that good of a person.
It's already hard enough. And so I don't know how I would be able to make it day in and day out with the grace that I can receive from the sacraments, with the grace that we can receive through our sacramental union. That's actual grace itself.
Amen.
And
the marital act is grace. It's beautiful. Everywhere else, it's right. I will say, I knew I was married when Nicole suggested this about maybe 6 months into our marriage, when she said, I think you should go to confession. I thought, who are you? Oh, wait. That's when you know you're married. When they say, I don't have a list written down, but I think it'd be better for you and for us if you went and talked to Father
your soul is smelling right now. I think you should go take a bath.
Yeah, and again,
it's the fullness of the truth of the riches of everything that, and if I'm going to participate in a heavenly banquet someday, I want to get a little bit of that here. So that's where we are.
And again, for family life, we go to confession once a month as a family. We're just better for it. Yeah. And you just see everyone hates each other. All the kids are fighting. Let's go. So just circling around to one of the earlier themes, I think y'all need to create something for marriage, and I think it's going to be beautiful. So whatever that is, I'm looking forward to it. And it might take a little while because I hear art takes some time. So whatever that is, Mark and Nicole, I'm honored to receive it. And even if it doesn't come this side of eternity, just the fact that y'all are being patrons of the arts, of bringing beauty to the world is better for it. So thank you, both of you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
An honor. And hang tight. We will we'll sum up after this. And to all of you who joined us for this edition of the Redeemed Vision podcast, I encourage you, check out thomasonarts.com. Just go soak in there. See what speaks to your heart, to your soul, and then make that little sacrifice to support this family. They're not starving artists, but they are desiring to be able to spread this message more. So if you have a little or you have a lot, go over there, go support them, because it's beauty itself, as we've talked about, can save the world. And we have the opportunity to bring something so spectacular to the world. Till next time, may everything we do give glory to the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. And remember, nothing is wasted. Everything is redeemable. And until next time, I'm Steve Pokorny for the Redeemed Vision podcast.